Nile Gregory Rodgers is a multiple Grammy award-winning American musician, producer, composer, arranger, and guitarist. He is the lead guitarist and co-founding member with Bernard Edwards of the band Chic, which has been active since 1976. Although he recorded 3 solo albums during the 1980s and 90s, and one as part of the short-lived group Outloud, Rodgers has found more success in collaboration as producer and performer with many artists including Sister Sledge, Diana Ross, David Bowie, Duran Duran, Madonna, INXS and more recently, Daft Punk, Avicii, Disclosure and Sam Smith. Life and career. Early life. Rodgers was born in New York City. He began his career as a session guitarist in New York, touring with the Sesame Street Band in his teens led by Joe Raposo, and then working in the house band at Harlem's world-famous Apollo Theater, playing behind Screamin' Jay Hawkins, Maxine Brown, Aretha Franklin, Ben King, Betty Wright, Earl Lewis in the Channels, Parliament Funkadelic, and many other legendary R&B artists. 1970s, Nile met bassist Bernard Edwards in 1970 when both were working as touring musicians for the Sesame Street stage show. Together they formed the Big Apple Band, and worked as backup musicians for the vocal group New York City. New York City unregistered trademark S1 hit allowed them to tour extensively, even opening for the Jackson 5 on the American leg of their first world tour in 1973. The band dissolved after their second album failed to yield a hit, but Nile and Bernard joined forces with drummer Tony Thompson, and worked and recorded as a funk rock band called The Boys, which played numerous gigs up and down the East Coast. Despite major label interest in their demos, they could not get a record deal when the record companies discovered they were black, as they thought that black rock artists would be too hard to promote. The band continued playing mostly local bars. Formation of Chic. As the Big Apple Band, Rodgers and Edwards worked with Ashford and Simpson, Luther Vandross, and many others. Since another New York artist, Walter Murphy, had a band also called the Big Apple Band, Rodgers and Edwards were forced to change their band unregistered trademark S name to avoid confusion. Thus, in 1977 the band was renamed as Chic. Rodgers has stated that a major inspiration was a Roxy Music gig he saw in London. It was a totally immersive artistic experience. The crowd were fly, the band were fly, the music was textual, they were saying come into my world. Between gigs they recorded their first album with then-boss Luther Vandross, who provided background vocals on the group unregistered trademark S early recordings. The band scored numerous top 10 hits and helped propel disco to new levels of popularity. Chic unregistered trademark S chart-topping songs La Freak, I Want Your Love, Everybody Dance, 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 My Forbidden Lover, and Good Times became club R&B standards. La Freak was composed after being turned away from Studio 54, after being invited by Grace Jones. La Freak is Atlantic Records unregistered trademark only triple platinum selling single, and Good Times shot to the #1 spot in spite of the Disco Sucks backlash in 1979. The success of Chic's first singles led Atlantic to offer Rodgers and Edwards the opportunity to produce any act on its roster. They chose Sister Sledge, whose 1978 album, We Are Family, peaked at #3 and remained on the charts well into 1979. The first 2 singles, He's the Greatest Dancer, and the title cut We Are Family, both reached #1 on the R&B chart, and #6 and #2, respectively on the pop chart. Hey unregistered trademark S The Greatest Dancer was sampled in 1998 on Will Smith unregistered trademark S Gettin' Jiggy With It. As the Chic organization unregistered trademark S tight sound became increasingly sought after, Rodgers and Edwards began record production with numerous artists, together or individually. 1980s. In 1980 Rodgers and Edwards wrote and produced the album Diana for Diana Ross, yielding the smash hits Upside Down, and I'm Coming Out. Chic unregistered trademark S song Good Times played a pivotal role in the explosion of hip-hop music, as an interpolation of the song's bass line, and the record unregistered trademark S string section sample was the bedrock of the Suicidal Gang's Rapper's Delight, the first multiple platinum hip-hop single. The Chic organization produced the smash hit Spacer for French disco act Sheila and B Devotion and Deborah Haya unregistered trademark S 1981 solo album Cuckoo. Chic dissolved in 1983 after its final contractual Atlantic album, Believer and Soup for One. At that time Rodgers began a solo career producing his first album Adventures in the Land of the Good Groove. Rodgers produced the 1983 album Talkback, by Canadian new wave new romantic band Spoons, which included the hits Old Emotions, and The Rhythm. Rodgers produced David Bowie's biggest-selling album Let's Dance with several hit singles including China Girl, Modern Love, and the title track, Lita unregistered trademark S Dance. He produced the single Original Sin by INXS. Duran Duran worked extensively with Rodgers after he remixed their largest-selling hit single, The Reflex in 1984 and followed up with the Wild Boys on their 1984 live album Arena. It was rumored that Rodgers had become a member of Duran Duran when they released the album Notorious, but he only acted as a co-producer and session musician on that album. That same year he produced Madonna's blockbuster album Like a Virgin, spawning her two signature hits Material Girl, and the album's title track, Like a Virgin. The album saw an unofficial reunion of Chic's core members, with Rodgers, Edwards, drummer Tony Thompson and keyboard player Robert Sabino all contributing. Rodgers also joined Robert Plant unregistered trademark S platinum-selling studio band the Onidrippers, on the album The Onidrippers, Volume 1. This period sparked Rodgers unregistered trademark interest in soundtracks, the first of which were Alphabet City, Gremlins Against All Odds, That's Dancing, White Nights and The Fly. In 1985 Rodgers produced albums for Sheena Easton, Jeff Beck, Thompson Twins, Mick Jagger, and many others, while still finding time to perform at Live Aid with Madonna and the Thompson Twins. He was awarded #1 singles producer in the world in Billboard magazine to close out the year. In 1986, he produced Duran Duran's Notorious album, which yielded a #2 title track hit, Notorious. During a live set, Simon Le Bon introduced Rodgers by saying, "Well, this band went through a difficult time and it might not have made it if it weren't for this gentleman." Rodgers contributed to numerous other projects and appearances with members of the band throughout the 1980s. He also produced albums for Grace Jones, Earth, Wind and Fire unregistered trademark S vocalist Philip Bailey, and Al Jarreau. Rodgers performed on Higher Love with Steve Winwood, and records for Cyndi Lauper, Howard Jones, and David Sanborn. He then worked on the soundtrack for Laurie Andersoni unregistered trademark S Home of the Brave. Rodgers formed the short-lived experimental band Outloud in 1987, with David Letterman unregistered trademark S guitarist, composer, and vocalist Felicia Collins and acclaimed French session musician, producer, composer, and keyboardist Philippe Sess. The trio released a single album, Out Loud, on Warner Bros. Records. In 1988 Rodgers composed his first orchestral soundtrack for the film Coming to America starring Eddie Murphy. Rodgers followed this with soundtracks for White Hot, and Earth Girls Are Easy. The latter would pair him with the B-52 unregistered trademark S. In 1989 he co-produced their comeback multi-platinum album Cosmic Thing, which had the hit singles Love Shack, Rome, Cosmic Thing, and Deadbeat Club. That year he also produced Work in Overtime, Diana Ross unregistered trademark Return to Motown, a deal that scored her an executive position at the label, along with releases by the Dan Reed Network, Slam, and Duran Duran unregistered trademark S compilation, Decade, which was appropriately titled. It was the most successful decade for Rodgers and also for many of the artists he worked with. 1990s. In September 1990, Epic Records released the Rodgers-produced Vaughan Brothers album, Family Style, shortly after the untimely death of guitar virtuoso Stevie Ray Vaughan. Early in this decade he also produced projects for David Bowie, Eric Clapton, the B-52s, David Lee Roth, Rick Ocasek, the Dan Reed Network, Kathy Dennis, Patty Griffin, Jimmy Vaughan, the Stray Cats and many other artists, along with continuing soundtrack work on Thelma and Louise, Cool World and the Beavis and Butt-Head Experience. After a 1992 birthday party where Rodgers, Bernard Edwards, Paul Shaffer and Anton Fig played old Chic hits to rapturous response. Rodgers and Edwards reformed a new version of Chic. They recorded a fresh crop of material for the album Chic-ism and performed live worldwide. In 1995, he played on the track Money from Michael Jackson's album History. In 1996, Rodgers released the album Chic Freak and More Treats in Japan, containing re-recordings of old Chic material with guest vocalists including Ashford and Simpson, Tadja Savell, Simon Le Bon and Christopher Max. Bernard Edwards also appeared, alongside regular Chic vocalist Sylver Logan Sharp and drummer Omar Hakim. In April 1996, Rodgers was honored as the JT's Super Producer of the Year. He performed with Bernard Edwards, Sister Sledge, Steve Winwood, Simon Le Bon and Slash in a series of commemorative concerts in Japan, which provided a career retrospective. Unfortunately, Rodgers found his longtime musical partner and close friend, Bernard Edwards, dead in his hotel room the morning after their last performance. A year later Rodgers returned to Japan to pay homage to his fallen partner. In 1999, Rodgers released Live at the Budokan, a live recording of the April 17, 1996 JT's Super Producer concert and made the decision not to make any overdues or changes in order to keep the purity of his last performance with Edwards. He started playing live concerts again while composing and producing music for film soundtracks, Beverly Hills Cop 3, Blue Chips, The Flintstones and Feeling Minnesota, to name but a few. In 1997, Notorious Big released Mo Money Mo Problems sampling Rodgers and Edwards' song I'm Coming Out from Diana Ross's 1980 platinum album, Diana. Mo Money, Mo Problems topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 2 weeks and was nominated for the 1998 Grammy Award for Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group. In 1998, Rodgers founded Something Else Music Works record label and Something Distribution, an independent music label distributor. Something focuses on distributing a fast-growing new genre, video game soundtracks. Its titles include the complete Halo and Resident Evil franchises and other well-known AAA game soundtracks like Gears of War and Borderlands. 2000s, Rodgers focused on many soundtrack projects, film and video games alike. Among them were Rush Hour 2, Snow Dogs and Semi-Pro starring Will Ferrell, who co-wrote the title song Oe Love Me Sexy with Rodgers. In 2002 03 he co-produced Astronaut, with the original 5 members of Duran Duran. Also in 2002, Rodgers appeared on the Red Hot Organization's compilation CD Red Hot and Riot. The CD, a tribute to the music and positive social message of Afropop pioneer, Fela Kuti, featured Rodgers on remakes of Kuti's songs Water No Get Enemy and Zombie. Rodgers appeared on Water No Get Enemy alongside influential hip-hop and R&B artists, D'Angelo, Macy Gray and the Soultronics, and on Zombie with famous jazz trumpeter Roy Hargrove. All proceeds of the CD were donated to charities working towards greater AIDS awareness. The September 11 attacks prompted Rodgers to create the We Are Family Foundation to help promote the healing process. To begin, he organized a re-recording of the song he and Edwards wrote for Sister Sledge called We Are Family with more than 200 musicians, celebrities, and personalities. Director Spike Lee filmed the We Are Family music video and director Danny Skitch filmed a documentary depicting the recording sessions called The Making and Meaning of We Are Family. The film was chosen as a Sundance Film Festival special selection in 2002. Rodgers then produced another We Are Family music video involving more than 100 beloved children's television characters. The children's music video airs as a public service announcement on Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and PBS stations promoting a common humanity and celebrating the vision of a global family. Rodgers received the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences NY Chapter's Governor's Lifetime Achievement Award and the Heroes Award. On September 19, 2005, he was honored at the Dance Music Hall of Fame in New York when he was inducted for his many outstanding achievements as a producer, along with former bandmate Bernard Edwards. Chic has been nominated to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 9 times: 2003, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 and 2014. Rodgers served as co-musical director for the tribute concert to Ahmet Ertegun at the Montreux Jazz Festival in the summer of 2006. The concert included performances by Chic, Robert Plant, Steve Winwood, Stevie Nicks, Kid Rock, Ben E. King, Chaka Khan, George Duke, Paolo Nutini and many other artists who were signed to Ertegun's Atlantic Records. A PBS documentary, Atlantic Records, The House That Ahmet Built, uses footage from this show, as it was one of the last times Ertegun would be captured on video. 2010s. In 2010, Rhino Records released a 4-CD box set, Nile Rodgers Presents the Chic Organization, Volume 1, Savoir Faire, which for the first time collected tracks from all of the acts produced by the Chic Organization up to their original breakup in 1983. Rodgers provided sleeve notes for the set, which was also reissued in 2013. Rodgers' critically acclaimed autobiography entitled La Freak, An Upside-Down Story of Family, Disco, and Destiny was published by Spiegel and Grau, a Random House imprint, in late 2011. It was named one of the top 10 of the 25 greatest rock memoirs of all time by Rolling Stone. This is a rich, warm tale of a fascinating life in the golden age of New York Euro and pop. The Guardian. He has additionally stayed active in music since the reunion of the Chic Organization by touring a Chic FT Nile Rodgers and producing live events. In recent years, he has continued to collaborate with an array of musicians including his 2014 three-time Grammy Award-winning collaboration with Daft Punk, Avicii, Disclosure and Sam Smith among many others. In October 2011, Rodgers worked with singer Adam Lambert in New York on a song entitled Shady for Lambert's second album, Trespassing. Both Rodgers and Lambert tweeted enthusiastically about the collaboration, and Rodgers also mentioned it on his blog Planet C. In February 2012, Rodgers announced that he was collaborating with electronic band Daft Punk for their latest album, teasing out their R&B influences. During a live interview for the UMF-TV at the 2013 Ultra Music Festival in Miami, Rodgers confirmed that he was working with Daft Punk, as well as recording multiple tracks with Avicii, and mentioned work with Chase and Status and Felix da Housecat. On March 31, 2013, BBC 4 broadcast a documentary about his music life, Nile Rodgers, the hitmaker, starting from the point that Chic was formed until the present, including stories about his involvement in producing numerous hits and albums for some of the world's best artists and bands. True to his word, Rodgers performed on Daft Punk's chart-topping album Random Access Memories. Rodgers co-wrote and played guitar on 3 tracks, Give Life Back to Music, Lose Yourself to Dance, and Get Lucky. On April 21, 2013, Get Lucky entered the official UK singles chart at number 3, despite having been available for little more than 24 hours, and rose to number 1 on April 28, 2013. In an interview with official charts company, Rodgers said, a Euro OEIA Euro unregistered trademark. They had big records and number ones. I have had records that were number 1 in the United States but nowhere else. A Euro OEIA Euro unregistered trademark. They had records which have done well, in the UK, but not in the States. But to have this ubiquitous record, that is a hit ever you hear. A Euro E to Euro unregistered trademark S amazing to me. A Euro unregistered trademark M out on the road and I can hear it wherever I go. A Euro unregistered trademark M flabbergasted. A Euro Rodgers declined to perform Get Lucky live until performing it live with Daft Punk, but at Chic's live shows in 2013, the record would usually be played immediately after the group's set, with Rodgers remaining on stage to lead the crowd in clapping and singing along. After Rodgers performed the song with Daft Punk at the Grammy Awards in January 2014, Get Lucky was added to the setlist for Chic's 2014 live dates. On June 28, 2013, Chic FT Nile Rodgers' performance at the Glastonbury Festival in the UK was aired live on BBC. The performance was given a 5-star review by The Guardian with the headline, "The Westholtz stage saw some of the greatest pop music ever made, expertly played by a ferociously well-drilled band." Noel Gallagher from Oasis also commented, "My favourite act at this year unregistered trademark South Glastonbury, when I went, was not the Rolling Stones, as great as they were. Was not the Arctic Monkeys, as good as they were. Was not Disclosure, as good as they were. But it was Chic. They were fucking mega. Absolutely out of this world." In July 2013, Rhino Records released Nile Rodgers Presents the Chic Organization Up All Night, a compilation album featuring songs written, played or produced by Rodgers and Bernard Edwards for Chic and various artists including Diana Ross, Sister Sledge, Carly Simon, Debbie Harry, Johnny Mathis, Sheila and B Devotion and Norma Jean Wright. Up All Night reached number 2 on the UK compilation album chart for the week ending July 13, 2013. In October 2013, Rhino released Nile Rodgers Presents the Chic Organization Up All Night that includes a medley taken from Chic Ft Nile Rodgers' live performance at the 2013 Glastonbury Festival. In August 2013, the track Mando Ben was released by the Brazilian band Jota Quest with the participation of Nile Rodgers. Rodgers co-produced and played guitar on Ten Snakes' track Love Sublime featuring Nile Rodgers and Fiora. Janelle Monáe opened for Chic Ft Nile Rodgers at the iTunes Festival in London on September 14, 2013. On October 10, 2013, Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards were nominated to the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Chic Ft Nile Rodgers opened the X Factor live show on November 2, 2013 for Disco Week. They performed a medley of hits including La Freak, He's the Greatest Dancer, and Good Times. On January 26, 2014, Rodgers performed Get Lucky with Daft Punk on the Grammy Awards, along with Pharrell Williams and Stevie Wonder, with a medley including elements of Chic's La Freak, and Wonder's Another Star. Rodgers won 3 Grammy Awards for his work with Daft Punk and Random Access Memories including Best Pop Duo Group Performance, Record of the Year and Album of the Year. In March 2014, Rolling Stone named Nile Rodgers one of the 50 most important people in EDM, stating, "The full scope of Nile Rodgers' career is still hard to fathom, and it's not just ongoing, it's in overdrive." On July 4, 2014, Chic Ft Nile Rodgers headlined the 2014 Essence Festival curated by Prince. Special guests performing with Chic during a segment of the show that highlighted Chic's songwriting and production work for other artists were Kathy Sledge for Sister Sledge's We Are Family, Janelle Monáe for Sister Sledge's He's the Greatest Dancer, and Prince for David Bowie's Let's Dance. Rodgers' solo single Do What You Wanna Do will be released on August 10, 2014 to benefit his We Are Family Foundation. Chic Ft Nile Rodgers is scheduled to headline Festival on September 7, 2014 on the Isle of Wight, UK. The hitmaker guitar. Rodgers plays a 1960 Stratocaster with a 1959 neck, affectionately nicknamed the Hitmaker, which he acquired as a trade-in at a small shop in Miami Beach, Florida. Exceptionally light in weight, it has a maple fingerboard and bears a well-worn white finish. Rodgers claims that it does not sound like any other Stratocaster in the world. In his autobiography, La Freak, An Upside-Down Story of Family, Disco and Destiny, Rodgers stated, "One day, following a gig in Miami, Nard got me to trade in my prized jazz guitar, a hollow-bodied Gibson Barney Kessel, for a sleek solid-bodied Fender Stratocaster, the 6-string equivalent of trading in a Range Rover for a Porsche. The local act that opened for us played on our equipment, and their guitar player sounded better than I did on my own amplifier. Nard convinced me it was the guitar that made the difference. His Soul Man makeover plan was working. He came to my room to admire my new guitar and showed me the style the other guy had played on my amp. He fingered the chords with his left hand, and his right hand would continuously play 16 notes to the bar while accenting the main parts of the rhythm. He called it chucking. Bernard used to be a guitar player before he switched to bass, and one lesson was all I needed. For the next few nights straight, while my roommate pursued all manner of trysts, I was having a love affair in the bathroom with my new axe. In just a few days, I'd emerge as a chucking funk guitarist who knew more jazz chord inversions than most of my R&B counterparts." The Fender Custom Shop introduced a limited edition Nile Rodgers Hitmaker Stratocaster guitar, a recreation of Rodgers' own guitar, in January 2014. Health. In January 2011, Rodgers revealed on his website that he had aggressive prostate cancer, which had been diagnosed in October 2010. As a result, he started a cancer blog called Walking on Planet C detailing his status and upcoming projects. On July 29, 2013, Rodgers posted on Twitter that he had been given the all-clear regarding his cancer. In November 2013, he gave an interview to BBC News talking about Daft Punk, Madonna, Diana Ross and beating cancer. Selected discography: Chic, Kiss Cheek, Risque Copyright, Real People, Take It Off, Soup for One, Tongue in Cheek, Believer, Chicism, Live at the Budokan, Nile Rodgers presents the Chic Organization Up All Night, Nile Rodgers presents the Chic Organization Up All Night, Solo, Adventures in the Land of the Good Groove, B-Movie Matinee, Outloud, Chic Freak and More Treats, Production. Soundtracks: Soup for One, Alphabet City, Coming to America, Earth Girls Are Easy, White Hot, Beverly Hills Cop 3, Blue Chips, Public Enemy, Rise of Nations Game, Halo 2 Soundtrack Game, Perfect Dark Zero Game, Halo 3 Soundtrack Game. References. Biography: Daryl Easley, Everybody Dance, Chic and the Politics of Disco, Helter Skelter Publishing, ISBN 1-9024-56-0, Peter Shapiro. Turn the Beat Around, The Secret History of Disco. Faber and Faber. ISBN A978-86547-952-4, Nile Rodgers. Le Freak, An Upside-Down Story of Family, Disco, and Destiny. Spiegel and Grau. ISBN A978-0-385-52965-5. External links: Nile Rodgers official site, Nile Rodgers IMDb, Something Distribution, We Are Family Foundation, Daft Punk, Random Access Memories, The Collaborators, Nile Rodgers, The Hitmaker, Interview on the Sound of Young America, Wax Poetics interview with Nile Rodgers.